raise your hand if you have a question. Use the chat box here if you have a question. Payush and I are going to might be monitoring the chats. Mariya will be monitoring it as well. Right now we're up to 17 people out of 115 or whatever. So if it stays at a small number, you know, we can open up the and have people talk. We'll see where it goes. But right now the mechanism that we're using is to raise your hand if you have a question, put it in chat if you have a question. We'll take those questions and we'll ask Mariya at the right times if there's any answer questions. Otherwise, we'll wait to the end and go through the questions and get Mariya to educate everyone and answer everything and solve all the world's problems. And then we'll have a quick Ask an Agile Coach question. We always end with that to open it up for any questions on anything to do with Agile. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining, especially those that are joining at a late time in your time zone. We appreciate it. This will be recorded, and I will send out the recording to everyone that has registered, as well as the deck. I'm also going to test something which we have not done yet, which is live on Zoom. So I'm going to see how this works. It's an experiment to see, you know, if this makes sense to do in the future. And live on YouTube is really good if you have, you know, more than 100 people, and because there's a limitation with Zoom to do more than that, and it allows people to join and share with everything that we're about to learn. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to experiment. So we are now recording, and we'll record till the end. We are now live on Zoom, or YouTube, sorry. And now I'll turn it over to Mariya. So she's graceful enough to join us. She's late where she's at to teach us about OKRs and everything else, and do this wonderful game called Jeopardy, which I got to participate, which was great fun. So Mariya, it is all yours.
Thank you very much, Jay. And I'm super excited to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I also do not see this session as much as teaching. It is definitely experience sharing. I'm going to share things that worked well as many that did not. And I hope to hear from you also what your experience is with OKRs, and if there are any learnings that you will generously share with the rest of us. As Jay has mentioned, there are two parts to our today's entertainment. So the first one is fairly serious framework that I have been using for 3 large multi-thousand people organizations in implementing OKRs and driving by our mission, vision, and align execution. And the second part is the Jeopardy game. It's OKR Jeopardy. There is a prize, obviously, for the winner, or maybe several winners, I hope. So kind of please pay attention, since some of it will come up during the Jeopardy game. So with that, I want to kind of explain why do you see New York here, and why did I volunteer for this meetup. I feel it's a great opportunity for us to meet each other all over those multiple locations where we're at. I joined Enterprise San Francisco meetup a few sessions ago for the session that Piyush and Ron were presenting at, and it was wonderful. I just felt it's a great community and a group of people, again, across the whole world. Like, when will that happen again? Who have shared interests, shared passion, and also very informal and welcoming community. So full disclosure, I volunteered and received a very warm welcome here. So that's the introduction about why I'm here. And actually, I am coming back because I started my journey in America 20 something years ago at Stanford. I even for this occasion, I took out of boxes, my old pictures from that time. So I feel that also it's a great opportunity to come back to the Bay Area. But most importantly, the reason I'm here is because I am passionate about OKRs. As much as I was passionate about agile mindset, agile culture, agile delivery, a few years ago, I was introduced to OKR culture. And initially, I was very skeptical. I kind of lived long enough to see MBOs, management by objective. I saw KPIs that were kind of more delegated to me by my manager, and then my bonus and my performance appraisal dependent on those. So I wasn't super excited about it. So over those few years of implementing OKRs in 3 large organizations, I fell in love with the inspiration, alignment, and all the other great things that OKRs bring if implemented right, if implemented as an alignment, inspiration, creativity framework. And also, I saw really sad examples where OKRs were the opposite. Instead of promoting psychological safety, it was all about I achieved 0.8% versus you achieving only 0.7, and really weird things happening with OKR execution. So I'm kind of, that's one of the reasons that drives me to share things that work really well. And it's like Agile, right? You can kind of write tasks and assign them and expect them to be done in 2 weeks, or you can drive alignment, working backwards from the customer culture and a lot of great things that Agile brings. So I feel OKRs are like Agile in 2005, 2006, where people are figuring out what is here about changing our ecosystem and culture, and what is there about writing those objectives and assigning key results to people. And I feel that there is a lot of education and experience sharing we can do in this field. So I will be glad if you have questions, please type them in the chat. I'm monitoring this. And also I will have a few questions for you, and kind of chat is a great source for that as well. These are 6 things, and I was thinking, how do I describe OKRs? Is it, your goal? Is it your motivation? Is it your inspiration? And then I came up with those 6 words. For me, this is the essence why someone, large organization or a small startup, would be that passionate about OKRs. Psychological safety, working together on something we know doesn't have any bearing on how we are assessed. It is on how we are seeing the success of our joint endeavor. Alignment, top down, bottom up, all directions. We have shared priorities. We no longer fight for what we call resources. We work on it together. Innovation, definitely, because OKRs do not tell us how. We have to figure out how. OKRs are inspirational objectives that we know how they will be measured. So they're not ambiguous. And also they're outcome driven, which makes it very, very important. And if done right, it's a lot of fun because now there is no fear of failure. There is a shared inspirational objective, and we're all working together to achieve those. So again, if done right, it's a very happy place, whether it's a huge organization of dozens of thousands of people or a smaller one where everyone understands goal in the same way. So kind of that's the introduction about why I am so excited about it. Also, big part about OKRs is that for me, it is a framework. For many people who implement OKRs in their companies, it's all about how do we write correct OKRs and what tool, what software do we use to capture those. And best case scenario, at certain intervals, we want to measure. Did we achieve those? And if not, maybe someone will get in trouble. So I see that a lot around. And unfortunately, that's how we think, right? We want to set something, we want to check it, and then we are looking for some action. And in fact, as many of you know, if done right, it's nothing like this. It's incremental. We want to course correct at any time as a team. We do not look at performance. We look at outcomes that we achieve. So here is my first question. I think this quote describes the nature of OKRs, and I want you to finish it. So please type in the chat, what do you think is the second half of this quote? The quote comes from Seth Godin, author and inspirational leader. And what he said in one of his books is the thing about goals is that living without them is a lot more fun. What's the second part of this quote? Any idea? And I promised prizes, by the way. And by the way, there is no penalty for the wrong answer. Living without goals is definitely a lot more fun because you can do just whatever you want, but not just that, and a lot less productive, definitely, than living with them. I like this one. So Sandra, you got it in the short term. So in the short term, definitely, but then we go back. We did a lot of busy work during a period of time, but what did we achieve? So if we do not have them in the short term, definitely, we are good. But if we want to achieve anything, we do want to set goals and we want to align against them. Someone told me that this kind of enterprise level look at OKRs look a little bit like Save Big Picture. So I want to start by saying it is not about Save Big Picture. It is, though, about different levels of alignment. So usually OKRs start from the top. It's just easy way to align. They don't have to. I usually do coach organizations to start with the mission and the vision of the organization and then talk about their annual and maybe even multi-annual organizational objectives. Then we talk about programs or product lines. Say if I'm working for consumer banking business, we would talk about our credit card products, deposit products, our global deposits, our lending. So that's the program goal. Sometimes at large organization, you can think about division. Then you go at team level, and team level think Scrum team. So for this small cross-functional group of people working together, what's important for us as a team? And then a lot of conversations about individual goals. So I am a big fan of personal agility, and equally I believe in personal OKRs. So I have my own approach, works for me personally. I'm practicing for 3 years. I do not know if I set inspirational enough objectives, but it definitely helps me achieve those. So similarly in the work environment, when we talk about individual growth, when we talk about learning, when we talk about impact and desires and expectations that people have individually, I do believe in individual goals as well. And I started by saying it's not Save Big Picture because it is not hierarchical. As you can see, there is constant alignment, realignment, there are conversations, there are different actions, there is reassessment. So even though usually it starts at the senior management level, company level, there is constant feedback loop in both directions. So kind of seems similar. You set up objectives, align with the company goals and cascade throughout the organization. So kind of the question is what can actually go wrong? So this is just small subset of things that I personally saw going wrong. So let's start with organizational alignment. I worked for a test prep company, a very large test prep company 10 years ago, which was not doing so well. They were still brick and mortar business significantly or very traditional one-way online learning courses. And they decided to introduce OKRs to the organization. And their number one objective was to become, in 5 years, we will be the number one educational institution in the world. And they probably thought it's an extremely inspirational objective. Actually, it was very demotivating to people because it was totally unrealistic. The company was trying to survive and figuring different ways of rebuilding its business through mobile apps, through acquisitions, and struggling and failing repeatedly, and yet they wanted to become the number one educational institution. So it actually, the effect on employees was the opposite. And also OKRs can be gamed at any level. You know, OKRs are set by people. So the moment you link them to the performance objectives, they just come up with very easy OKRs, and you may be able to question them, but most of the time, this aspirational nature where fully achieving objective is almost impossible, still realistic, but almost impossible, where we say 70% or zero point 0.7 achievement of OKR is in the green, so-called green zone, a great result that we should be comfortable with. I also saw a lot of OKRs that were not cascading. So I kind of coached an organization where they were super excited about the concept. So every group came up with their OKRs. And also it was not 3 to 5, it was like 7 to 10 more like. So as it was cascading, I saw a small group that had 60 OKRs. And I asked them, how do you capture them? How do you track them? And they showed me a huge, I think it was Tableau dashboard. And kind of a lot of effort went into measuring something that was not impactful at all. And the worst thing that I think it's the third time I'm mentioning it because it's very painful, using OKRs for performance assessments. And I attended a workshop with John Doerr, which was hosted by a company which has probably number one, number two OKR software that is being actively used. And I asked them to do a demo for me and a few of my colleagues. So when they came for the demo, they were showing the performance management module of their software. So ask them a question. You know, you are known as OKR software, and now all those objectives and key results are measured at individual level. You can create a module. How does this person achieve their individual objectives and as part of their team? And then you can link it to their conversations with their manager. So how is that really OKRs? And then they said something I'm still processing. They said, what we're actually telling you, you shouldn't directly tie your OKR to your objectives, but indirectly, it's definitely a great input into assessing someone's performance, conversation, and so forth. So I personally found it very painful because even though when you as a coach come to an organization, you know, in my experience, 100%, I get the question like, what do you mean it's not tied to performance review? How can you not? And yet there are so many ways not to do so and find other more inspirational ways of looking at people and their contribution in corporate environments. So again, ton of things that may go wrong. To enable them not going wrong, I came up with this very simple framework that I am sharing with you today. It is a four-step framework, and as simple as it is, and definitely it's not covering all the concepts of OKRs, it helps me avoid some of those challenges that otherwise kind of um, for some reason happen over and over again when people kind of self-coach themselves, or they buy everyone in the organization an amazing book by John Doerr, Measure What Matters. I'm sure many of you have read it and kind of like think that now they can go ahead and work on OKRs. So the first step is obvious, it's to set OKRs. There are some rules about what's a good OKR or a bad OKR. And again, OKR consists of objective, which is usually aspirational, aligned with the mission and aligned with the company level objective. And key results, I'm saying, more than 3 key results I would not recommend, but more than 5 is definitely a mistake. Usually those are measurable. John Doerr, in his book that I just shared, is talking about quantitative and qualitative OKRs. I always say it's really important that your key results are outcomes. Some of them would be measurable, some of them may not, but if it is a task, then its place is in the project plan. So it's definitely not a task. It is something that provides outcome to the end user, to the business. Maybe it's an enabler from technical perspective, but it is not an activity, not a task. So I'm going to play a game with you, which is, and again, it's never really good or like really, really bad, or in my experience, usually it's a combination of both. So when I'm going to ask you, is it good or bad? I would probably look at, is it more like a good one that cannot be improved, or is it a bad one that should be rewritten? So please look at it this way. So here is the first one. And as I'm reading it, feel free to type it. And you have two options, good or bad. And these are, by the way, these are all actual objectives and key results of actual companies. Objective: we will achieve market leadership for GitLab by key result 1, growing use of GitLab for all stages of the DevOps lifecycle by 10%, via establishing 3 proven case studies. Obviously, that's for the product team. Key result 2, ensuring appropriate transactional business pricing. That's for sales. And again, when we say for sales, doesn't mean sales are working on it exclusively. Maybe there is some software component, marketing component. It just means they're driving this key result. And key result 3, launching advertising for the customer base for manage, plan, create, and increase overall pipeline coverage by 8%. And that's for marketing. So that's, as I said, it's something, the actual one. And you may guess which company is it for? And also, it's for GitLab, and also it's published on GitHub. You can go and check it out. I think it's the last year's set of OKRs. So feel free to enter your response in chat. Is it a good one or a bad one? Again, good doesn't mean perfect. Okay, Ron is saying it's a bad one. Travis is saying it's a good one. Let's have a couple more answers. Yep, Veronica is saying very correctly, it's never an absolutely good one or a really bad one. So I personally put one, as you can see, in the green area. So I think it's a good one. There are several reasons. Objective is inspirational and it's general enough, which is fine because we clarify it by key results. Key results are measurable. Some of them, like appropriate transactional business pricing, that's some ambiguity. Obviously not perfect. Market leadership, Veronica is saying, could mean many different things. I fully agree with that. So it's never perfect, but it's measurable enough, it's clear enough, and ownership is well defined. So let's look at the next one. We will increase efficiency of QA processes by key result 1. Test cases for all P1, P2 stories are completed and handed over to dev before development starts. Key result 2, 1 week before release date, no blocker and critical bugs should be open. Key result 3, bug leakage to production for critical issues is less than 1%. So as you can see, measurable. And key result 4, less than 3 bugs reported by end users per release. Okay, feel free to type, good or bad. Okay. Yep, let's check. Yes, that was correct. It was not David, Veronica, definitely not the best one. So increasing efficiency, definitely not inspirational. And also it looks very much like, a mix of compliance and tasks, and actually less than 3 bugs reported by end users. That's more or less like quality-based outcome. But other than that, there is just too much, doesn't really talk about efficiency of QE processes, which by itself is not really an objective that you may want to have. So that's the next one. We will deliver working software to the customer every sprint with high quality. By key result 1, delivering to production every sprint, achieving over 80% regression test automation, increasing unit test coverage to 75%, implementing a continuous monitoring tool, enabling engineers manage lower environments within required SLA. Any thoughts? Okay, good. Let's check. Yep, I personally did not find it as good for several reasons. Yeah, sloppy. Very well said, David. It's all over the place. I'm not even sure if key results reflect the original objective, which was about quality. And here there is performance and availability and SLAs, like definitely all over the place. And also, what does it mean every sprint with high quality? We do not know what's the duration of the sprint. We do not know how we define high quality, and key results are not mapped. So I missed the question how to rewrite it. So when I see an OKR like this, I usually kind of scrap it. I do not say let's make it better, because obviously objective comes from totally different family than the key results. I start doing 5 why exercises and kind of understanding what are the pain points that we actually want to address. So for me, this one may not be even worth rewriting. Okay, so let's do the last one. So by now you're all pros in terms of OKR setup, our first step within our 4-step framework. So here is the last one. We will achieve a higher operational availability and lower operational costs as measured by key result 1, 0 DevOps owned services. I removed the company name. So key result 2, 10% reduction in operational cost, and key result 3, 0 single points of failure. What do you think? If you noticed, I came up with complex ones, right? They're all from like OKR, DevOps, quality, delivery areas. I'm not doing marketing and sales, which are more straightforward. Okay, better. Yeah, I think that's very well said. It's we may not say it's like perfect, but it's definitely better. It's aligned, it's clear what we're talking about and what we're trying to achieve. So that's the setting. Probably that's the first step. I usually get a lot of questions which software, and I kind of, that's my position. I'm totally agnostic. There is a lot of decent software appearing in kind of mapping your OKR to your delivery lifecycle and your value stream end to end. But I, even if I come to the organization and get the first question, like, how much we should invest in software, I suggest to start with like very simple templates and a simple way to align them, whichever tool they're using throughout their execution. And, probably any agile tool will work here fairly well. Currently I'm using Jira. Before I was using version 1, and whatever they have for the first step, in my opinion, would work. So I start with this type of templates: annual objective and your key results. So very simple approach. The second step is more complex. That's where you align. That's where this cascading structure of OKRs becomes really tricky, because for new organizations who do it, what happens, OKRs are set on top. Then every top level OKRs goes to the right organization, where each of the key results becomes an objective for a specific group, which also adds a few of their own. And then it goes down, and cascading ends up with, a very large number of those. So to make sure this doesn't happen, I introduce step 2, which is more a set of conversations, but set of conversations that you structure in such a way that you achieve alignments through those conversations. It's not multiplications of key results through objectives at the lower level. It is a thoughtful analysis. What do we need to do to make this happen? So I love this quote. It comes from sports for a reason. Don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. So that's what the alignment process is for me. So here's an example. I am not necessarily saying it's a good one, but when I see something like this, it tells me that's an example of a healthy organization that understands OKRs in a meaningful way. So this is a sample objective: improve application quality, stability, and reliability. So we can immediately see these are the challenges that they're facing. They came up with 3 results. Again, could be 100 results, but they said specifically for us, that's what it means. Key result 1, reduce number of production defects by 50%. So obviously there are some quality issues there. Key result 2, improve quality of delivery within the sprint. And key result 3, increase system stability and reliability by 30%. Each of those key results has something from multiple teams where they come into the same room, virtual or physical, and brainstorm. What do we need to do together? And what's the role of every part of this value stream in making sure that they together make it happen? So just the first one is a good example: quality management team. So they're working on escape defects. Release management, they want to ensure that there is proper testing and reporting as they release into production. Here is development team. So again, they looked at why. Probably they did their 5 why exercises, and they said, well, we have a lot of core systems, a lot of new people who want to invest in knowledge transfer. There is even chief of staff, because they decided to create a dedication production support team. There is agile practice, which I would say may be questionable key result, but it's very clear what they're trying to do. And also, obviously, there is a design issue, so the architecture team has some role to play here. So as you can see, it is not kind of every new part of the organization gets their own objective based on the upper level key result. It is the organization has a goal, and there is collaboration between different parts of this organization in thinking, how do we bring it together? Again, with thousands of people, it becomes trickier, but as soon as the right conversation happen and propagate to every next level, it is not as difficult. This one, I usually, when I do workshops, I give it as an exercise. That's actually the real template, what became a template, but that's the real brainstorming exercise on improving customer experience, which I did within one of the large organizations I was coaching. And I give it to people, split them in teams, and ask them to fill it out. And what's really amazing here, they come obviously with different results, but results are very much in sync. They're very much aligned on how jointly different parts of the organization can achieve the same goal. And again, very simple templates. If there is software, great. If there is no software, that's a good first step. And I've come up with a good cascading view for each of the objective, key result by key result. So that's a line part. But we don't do it once, obviously. Just doing it once doesn't make sense because many organizations spend a lot of time at the end of the year, beginning of the next one, and setting OKRs, aligning, and then forgetting about them. So refine is a very important part of the OKR setting process. And that's from Galileo Galilei, like who could have said it better, measure what's measurable and make measurable what's not. So even if it is qualitative key result, it's still measurable. And the idea is, and again, at organizational level, like more or less, um, traditionally we're talking about annual um, goal setting, and then every quarter we reflect on how we're doing against our key results. At that point, we can change our key results. We can even talk about objective not being valid anymore or not being achievable. But most importantly, I do a small scale planning exercise as we're moving into a year with our annual OKRs. Here's an example of how you refine those. Company OKR. Objective is respond to market needs by delivering new functionality to global customers daily. Objective. We will enable daily production deployments to global customers with high quality at no additional expense. Sounds familiar probably to many of you. By performing 80% of application testing without requiring an integrated environment, enabling daily deployments with full regression testing. 3, reducing high priority and critical production defects to no more than 1 per 20 deployments. So what is done here by quarter, we want to see which of those we're having in focus, which means, first, in this case, we want to focus on KR1 and KR2. We may move forward to third or fourth quarter. And also by saying we want to enable daily deployments with full regression testing. Maybe as of now, regression testing is only 50% automated. So we want to say in quarter one, we want to achieve 70% automation. And by Q3, it will be 80%. So kind of spreading your objectives and key results throughout the year with enabling quarterly review with kind of definitely communication around what you're changing and why. And most importantly, this is what kind of I personally lived through, and I very much advocate for it. What you see here is pre-grading or pre-scoring. As many of you know, we try to score OKRs from 0. And 0 doesn't mean that nothing has been done. 0 means that nothing has been achieved, like outcomes. Maybe we did a lot of busy work, no one cares, it does not count. So, and 1 means we achieved everything we ever wanted, and 0.7 means we're in the green zone. And I usually tell my teams, if you achieve 0.7, stop and look at what's your next priority OKR and maybe move to the next key result. Because for me, 0.7 is usually sufficient. So, so that we're on the same page, so that we don't argue. Are we at 0.3? Are we at 0.5? Sometimes you want to kind of perform 80% of application testing, but maybe 20% would already be, 0.5 key result, because you have some setup activities, you have to acquire some tooling, you have some hiring to do. So again, in this case, we specifically can see what is 0.5. And this way, there are no arguments on a quarterly basis, did we achieve it or not? So again, very simple template, annual objective, every key result by quarter, and then your pre-grading that becomes your actual score in the end of the quarter when you go through your group exercise of self-assessing and self-grading your own results. Again, it's not the manager is telling us, did we achieve it, did we not? It is more, do we feel that we're there? And if we're not there, do we want to pivot? Do we want to refine? Do we want to collaborate? Whatever needs to be done. Now the final step. Final step is iterate. So I said it's a framework, and I have been comparing with Agile. And I would say that it's continuously changing. I just mentioned refinement and pivots. As Mark Twain said, continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. So we're definitely not trying to be perfect here. We continuously improve. For that, we build our cadence. I just mentioned annual cadence with quarterly grading and refinement. For small organizations, it could be monthly, uh, whatever makes sense. The usual cycle I'm used to for large corporates I'm working with is kind of process starts in early November with enterprise OKRs are announced, then kind of divisional drafting, alignment workshops are happening. There is OKR retrospective. I don't do it in the beginning because there is a lot of lessons learned from those first two steps. And then there is a big kickoff, and kickoff usually is town hall where review the last year OKRs and um, inspire everyone with the current year. So I usually, like similar to the way I was telling my Scrum teams many years ago, set up your ceremonies for the whole year. Similarly, I tell the organizations for the OKR setting, set up your activities for a year ahead, set up all your review sessions, think who you want in discussions for each OKR, who are your stakeholders, set up all those invites, and um, be sure that you have the right people invited. So here is very simple 4-step framework: set up, align, refine, and iterate. So my question here, I kind of, when I was thinking of what is the right title for each of the steps, I wanted to create a simple acronym, which is easy to remember, something where you can take the first letter of every step and remember easily what they are. So I want to ask you to type in the chat, what do you think is the acronym for this framework? I gave it away a little bit, so. It's set up, align, refine. Beautiful, thank you, David. Yeah, here it is. So that's my easy way for remembering this framework. And again, I always, whenever I see there is mismatch, missed expectations, wrong use of OKRs, I usually can say you missed step 1, you didn't do step 2 correctly, you didn't do step 3, or you forgot about 4, you just set those up and forgot about them until next year. So again, every single step of SARI process is equally important. So I want to conclude the presentational part of tonight by a quote from Michelangelo: "The greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark." So that's what OKRs are for me. They're inspirational, and also it's an opportunity to setting our aim so high that eventually we're able to achieve it together as a team. So how would you like, I am open either way, so I look for Q&A session. We can do it now, or we can play the game together and then do the Q&A. Does anyone have any preferences? The game or Q&A? Feel free to type in the chat. Yay, okay. Thank you. Let's do the game. I also have music, so I'm doing it first time with the music, but let me tell the rules first. And again, if kind of technically anything doesn't work for you, just kind of type or speak up and mute yourselves and speak up. We have a lot of participants, but we also have a lot of questions. And the prize is, I came up with OKR cards. So I have an Excel file with those cards and kind of mini rules how to play them. I always have my leaders play them during their offsites, or even, I had a group of leaders play this game. It usually is very inspirational for some reason and also a little bit of fun. So looking for Piyush's taking the lead in calculating our winners as you will be taking the questions. Thank you for that.
Yes, Mariya. So you're explaining the game rules, right?
Yep, so the rules are the okay, now I have to figure out who I will select. Let me do that. So I will select the first question. From then, please type your answers in the chat. Whoever typed the correct answer first gets obviously the score and gets to select the next one. And then again, anyone can type in the chat. So kind of very simple sequence of events of how to play Jeopardy. I also want to remind everyone that Jeopardy is answers, so no one is asking you questions. Actually, you have to guess what the question is, and the answer is usually in the form of what is. Again, you get the answer and you have to guess the question. So let's try. It's actually very simple, and let me pick an easy one. And a few words about categories. So OKR heroes are different authors or people who implemented OKR successfully. OKR examples, the answer usually is what is objective, or what is key result, or what is OKR, or what is, depending on the example that you get. And true or false, the answer is what is true or what is false, depending on whether you get a correct statement or incorrect statement. So with that, let us try OKR concepts for 100. Okay, so here is the question. And again, you can start typing at any time. The question is a framework for defining and tracking objectives and their outcomes. Okay, I see first set of questions appearing. Let's see. Awesome. What is OKR? So Piyush, who was first?
Travis.
Awesome.
Travis Davidson came first.
Travis gets 100. So Travis, you get to select the next category. Please unmute yourself and select the next one.
I don't agree. Piyush, I think.
It was actually
I answered 9:52.
Yeah, he's got
21 seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is not fair.
Okay, sorry. Is it Sham?
Yes,
Great
it is.
job, Sham.
Sorry, I saw the Travis one first. So yeah, thanks for letting me know. Sham
No, I don't trust you, Piyush.
No, my bad. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Sham, what's the next one?
I'll pick 100 true or false.
Awesome. True or false? OKRs are similar to KPIs. Okay, let's check the answer. What is false? So Piyush, who is the correct answer?
So I don't want to be untrustworthy, but I would like to understand whether you have to write what is false, what is true, or just the answer false or true, Mariya. That's a question for you. What will be considered the right answer? Should you write the whole thing as a question?
The what is format?
Yes. So what do you consider as the right response?
Okay, let me scroll up. What is false? Travis, So Travis, you pick the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Jay. So this is Jeopardy rules. Okay, you have to answer it with a question, just like Jeopardy. If you say false, and you don't say what is false or who is false, you lose.
All right, so Piyush and Maria, your check is in the mail. Thanks for that.
Okay, so now you got to pick.
OKR Heroes for 200.
Okay, this person wrote a bestseller about OKRs based on outcomes. Okay. Okay. Wow, so many correct answers.
Yeah. So I
A few
think
misspellings though.
so. Spelling is okay, right, Maria? Or you?
Yep, spelling is fine.
Okay.
We're not that strict.
All right. So I think Travis is bang on still at this moment.
Okay, Travis has 300 already. Sham has
So-
100.
Yeah, so this is Jay. So we're not doing Final Jeopardy because spelling and Final Jeopardy counts. But we're not Final Jeopardy.
Okay, what's the next one?
Let's do OKR concepts for 200.
OKR concepts for 200. This is a usual time frame to review progress against OKRs.
No responses.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I got it. Yeah. The
Wow.
first one is Ron.
Perfect, Ron. 200. What's your next pick?
Yay. OKR examples for 300.
Awesome. Expand thought leadership program by placing guest articles on 4 industry-related sites with an Alexa ranking of at least 30,000. Just reminding everyone that answers here could be what is objective, what is KR, what is OKR, or what is whatever other something you come up with. Okay. Awesome, so many correct answers.
Yeah.
And that
So-
was 300.
So that I think the first one who did it right was Sham. What is the key result?
Awesome, Sham, you're getting 300 and selecting the next one.
I'll go with the OKR Heroes 300.
She wrote the only fiction book about OKRs being a driver for business success. This is not something I mentioned. It is a tough one. Okay, so I don't see anyone getting the correct answer. It's an amazing book. For all of you OKR enthusiasts, I totally recommend it. It is Christina Watke, and the book is called Radical Focus. I don't know if you can see it. I'm like trying to hold it close to my face so that you can see it despite the background screen, but the book is amazing. It's actually a story. It's a fiction. It's kind of, if any of you read the Phoenix Project, it's a similar kind of fiction book.
Mariya, I think Prasad got it, looks like, but
Wow, Prasad, you did get it. I'm super excited. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I used to work with her at LinkedIn back in the day.
Wow. You have to tell us stories. I met her once at a Lean Startup conference in San Francisco, and she was sitting like somewhere in the hallway working on her computer, and then I just stole her, and we had an amazing conversation. She is an inspirational leader. Okay, so Prasad, what's the next one?
OKR Heroes 300.
Oh, sorry. That's the one you just got. My apologies.
I know that
didn't
one too.
So,
OKR Heroes 400.
400. This Google executive said, OKRs have helped lead us to 10x growth many times over.
so I think the first I think Eliza was first on this. Who is Larry Page? Eliza.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, sorry, I don't have my video on, I apologize.
No.
But I can't see the screen. I will go true or false for 500.
Wow, ambitious.
Yes.
True or false?
Yes.
It is not good to consistently achieve your objective. If you are consistently hitting your goals, you are undershooting your capabilities. That's an amazing group of people. Very, very rarely I get so many correct answers.
So Sandra, you are the fastest finger first.
Yes, I was.
Great job, Sandra.
Am I winning with 500 already?
You got 500. You're almost there. So what's the next one?
Okay, true or false for 400?
True or false? OKRs are graded by managers since they are responsible for overall results.
My goodness. Mariya, even before you completing the question, the answers are in.
Awesome. Awesome. So who was the first, Piyush?
I'm just trying to make sure we get the right one. So I think, is it, did you put the answer? What is the answer?
Oh, great point.
Okay.
I feel like everyone knows the answer already.
All right. So I think this is it Ming? You are the first?
Yes.
Ming?
Mhm.
Yeah. Ming, you are the first one who answered for this.
So Ming, you're getting 400. What's your next choice? We still have a few.
300, true or false?
Awesome. True or false? OKRs should be highly aggressive and hard to achieve. So Piyush, who was the first?
Yeah, just a second. I got it so fast, everyone I have to.
I know there are so many correct answers, which is awesome. I'm
So I
looking
think Sham has the fastest finger first on this.
Awesome, Sham. You got another 300. Congratulations.
go
What's
with,
the next one?
I'll go with true or false 200.
Key results can be measured on a 0 to 100% scale or any numerical unit. For example, 0 to $1 amount, etc. Okay, what is true?
Okay, so Sham gave both the answers, true and false, but before anybody else could give the answer. So I think it's Sham again.
Awesome. Okay, Sham, what's your next one?
I'll go with OKR concepts 300.
OKRs should never be directly associated with this concept. Okay, here is the answer. What is performance reviews? Performance management is good enough.
Yeah, so I think Prasad got it.
Congratulations, Prasad. What's your next one?
OKR Heroes 500. Let's go with the
Oh,
heroes.
wow. Awesome. They introduced the first OKR certification. Oh, that's a tough one. Okay. Yep. A lot of answers. I actually, I love some of your answers more than the one that is here. That's the one. So here is the book. I actually highly recommend it. Not sure if you can see it. So the book is called Objectives and Key Results by Paul Niven and Ben Lamort. So these are the two coaches who were kind of my gurus in learning about OKRs. I highly recommend the book because it's very practical. If John Doerr's book is inspirational and Christina Watkins' book is like all about why and when you use OKRs, this is all about how. Like great book, it will give you examples, it will give you like, you know, good and bad practices, it will guide you through the process. So it's very much like process-oriented OKR implementation book. By the way, I'm not endorsing the certification. I personally don't have it, but I definitely love the book. Okay, so no one got this one. Piyush, now you get to choose.
Okay. OKR examples 500.
Awesome. By December 15th, 2020, prepare a launch checklist. List each activity, establish all due dates. Now I got everyone thinking. Wow.
That's tough.
Sham, I think I should come to you to learn about OKRs. So this one, I hardly see anyone ever answering, but we got the correct answer. What is the task? So
Yeah,
definitely
Sham
it's
gets
not.
it. Yeah.
Yep, it's not an, it's a hard one, and yet it is very important. So when you see anything like this is one of those where I see like this belongs to a project plan, you know.
I'm
Definitely
learning
not.
from the best.
Excited to hear. Okay, so Sham, which one?
I'll go with OKR Heroes 100.
Okay, the person who is believed to be the father of OKRs. Okay, so Piyush, you have a tough decision to make because, okay,
I think Sham gave the answer, right? He gave Andy Grove.
yeah,
Oh,
so between Sandra did before that,
yeah, Sandra
and
also gave, correct.
yeah, and Travis kind of did it, right?
Oh,
Almost there,
Intel guy.
which is definitely
count.
correct. So
That does
Andy
not
Grove,
count, Travis. No.
Who was that guy at that big company down in the valley?
So I think
so
because Sandra gave the exact name, I think it would be fair to give her the credit.
Yeah.
awesome, Sandra. It was 100. I think I have to rethink a little bit the
So I have
scoring.
yeah, I get 600. Okay, cool. Let me have OKR tips and tricks for 500.
Awesome. OKRs are typically set at these organizational levels. A lot of typing. That's exactly the 4 levels. Remember when I said it's not safe big picture, company, program, team, and individual?
So I think if we go by that understanding, we have Sham who is actually provided, but at the same time Jessica mentioned all. So would it be fair to consider Sham's response?
Specificity.
What are
Specific.
you doing, love?
Okay, Sham, what's the next one?
All right, Sham, you get it.
Okay, I'll go with OKR example 100.
Reduce average video loading time by 10%. Okay, what is the key result? So Piyush, again, that's a tough one.
Prasad.
Okay, Prasad, what's your next one?
OKR concepts for 400.
400. This company is believed to be the first to implement OKRs. Intel, we just spoke about Andy Grove, the father of OKRs. Intel.
It's definitely Sham has the book in front of him.
Oh no!
So it is Sham. Sham, you get it again. It's awesome, man.
Sham, what's the next one?
I'll go with OKR example 200.
Become the #1 most downloaded iOS productivity app. What is the objective?
Prasad, hands down.
Awesome, 200 for Prasad. What's the next one, Prasad?
OKR concepts 500.
500. An effective goal-setting system starts with disciplined thinking at blank blank with leaders who invest the time and energy to choose what counts. That's a quote from John Doerr. Okay, still a few seconds more. Yeah, that's another tough one. It's 500, supposed to be tough. Okay, here is the answer.
What is the top? So I think there are no exact answers. There is executive level by Prasad, and Gopal said C-suite. What would you consider the right answer?
I'm good with C-suite. Yeah.
Yeah, Gopal, you're rocking.
Gopal,
No,
what's the next one?
nowhere close to Shyam. I'll pick the 400 for OKR tips and tricks.
Awesome. A helpful technique of removing any ambiguity with OKR grading. Okay, another second to give someone a chance. Remember, I was talking about, OKR grading gets ambiguous and people start arguing if they don't pre-grade. I would take pre-scoring, I would take pre-grading, but this 400, I think, goes to me. Back into the bank.
Yeah, I think this was tough for everyone.
Awesome. Okay, Piyush, then you are the one to select.
Yeah, let's do OKR examples 400.
400. Increase brand recognition and awareness. What is an objective?
So Ron tried to do it. I don't know why he stopped, like writing what is O.
I will take O. It's OKRs. So totally
Okay.
valid answer. It's
All
an
right,
O.
Ron, you got it.
Okay, 400 to Ron. Ron, which one to pick?
Tips and tricks for 300.
Rather than being based on activities and tasks, key results should be based on this. Okay.
So I think most of them mentioned outcome.
I will totally take outcome. It's proxy for value.
Okay, if that is the case, then it's Shyam again. Shyam, you're monopolizing this.
Sham is writing the next book about OKRs.
No.
And picking the next item.
I'll go with OKR 100.
100. OKRs comprise an objective, a clearly defined goal, and one or more blank blank used to track the achievement of that goal.
Yeah, Ming was fastest. Ming, you're fastest on this.
Awesome. 100 goes to Ming. Ming, now you can choose.
Well, there's only one left.
No. This is considered to be a maximum recommended number of objectives or key results within each objective. Okay, the number is 5.
Prasad. Prasad gets it.
Awesome. So thank you all so much for playing. I think some of the items were easier than the scoring, and some of those turned out to be really complex. I also I use this game as a little bit of like easy way of getting into the fairly complex concept of OKRs. I usually do it at trainings or offsites or during lunchtime, whatever it is. It kind of makes it lighter to think about all those difficult things that are really hard to achieve and how we cascade and what software we use and like who is in charge here and kind of all the questions that usually come to people when they get familiar or hear about the framework. So I totally encourage all of you to gamify kind of your team, your organization, entry into the OKR space with something like this. With that, I want to thank you all so much for playing. So Piyush, who are the top 3 or top 5 winners today?
Yeah, so I would say that maybe you continue with the Q&A and I'll do the math and come back in a few minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So there is a lot of addition to do here. So with that, I kind of, you know, and I personally, for me, it's really nostalgic way of kind of coming back to the Bay Area. So I put here the pictures from 1993, 1994, when I first came there. And a few links. Feel free to reach out to me directly or through my website or like anyhow else. I love talking about it. I already have a few people who just reached out to me on LinkedIn saying, hey, we see you're presenting on this topic. Do you mind sharing what you're doing? And I'm definitely a practitioner and enthusiast. I'm definitely not a guru and not an OKR expert, but always will be glad to share with you. So with that, Jay, how should we run the Q&A session?
Yeah, this is Jay, and thank you, Mariya, as a Stanford, you know, alumni. So thank you for coming back virtually. So now, anyone that wants to ask a question, whether it's to Mariya or anything in the Agile universe, go ahead, open up, because we're at, you know, only like 20 people here right now. So just open up your mute and ask a question and we'll go forward while Piyush is trying to calculate the winner, because you will win a house on Malibu.
So Piyush, you have to put your bank account. Prasad is saying he wants your bank account number.
No, that is not true. So is there any questions anyone has or any comments or anything? The mic, just unmute yourself and ask, please.
Hey, Mariya,
Yeah, hi,
this is
Shibu here.
Gopal.
Go ahead.
I think somebody else had a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, Gopal. This is Shibu here. I think in the introduction of this meetup, it was mentioned that the OKRs were implemented in Google or Alphabet, if I'm not correct. So if you can share some key learnings or some key experience of that, just wanted to understand, you know, how it was successful.
Yeah, so there are 2 great sources, and thank you so much for the question, Shibu, because that's how I got excited about OKRs. Kind of reading and listening through the case studies of how it worked and how it became successful. There is a great Google Talk, which I want to find right now and right here. So it's Google Talk on OKRs by one of the product managers, which is awesome. That's what got me excited. And it's from like quite a few years ago. I think I saw it in like 2015 or something, but the talk is really awesome. How Google sets goals. So here it is. So it tells every possible detail about what's inspirational, how they do it, how they self-grade, how they cascade. It gives a few good examples. It talks about how people learn working with each other in teams at Google and what type of OKRs they set up, about business OKRs as well as engineering and division specific OKR. So really good one. So that would be my first suggestion. Yeah, 2013. So Google implemented, and Intel implemented OKRs, by the way, in 1970s. So the concept is definitely not new, but Google maybe like 10 or so years ago kind of made it their primary vehicle of aligning across the enterprise. But kind of formally, they consider themselves implementing OKR since 1999, so almost from the very beginning. So again, that's the first source. And the second source of amazing inspirational case studies, very specific, is John Doerr's book. This one, Measure What Matters. So this book, that's why the reason I said that Paul Niven's book is very practical. It's about how. John Doerr's book is just exactly that. It is about 5 different case studies of different companies, different size. To the extent that you actually see the objectives and key results, the whole kind of journeys are discussed and analyzed, and how what they do was changed with OKRs. I like the YouTube, I like the Stretch story, the Zoomy story, kind of, read through them, and they will definitely inspire you. So thank you again for this question, Shibu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mariya.
Gopal.
Hey, Mariya, my question is about the 3 books that you mentioned. One is the John Doerr's book, the other one, Christina's book, and the third one with respect to the process. If I just pick up the process book and read through it, and I want to, put something together for my team or my organization, would I be able to do that, or would you recommend, I mean, you mentioned the video, that's great, or would you recommend any other material there?
Yep, so I will tell you a name that I trust and kind of I read a lot because I see him as a thought leader. He is very pragmatic. His specialty, kind of what he does for living, is traveling the world and coaching teams, organizations, and executives on OKRs. He has a great blog. So definitely Paul Niven's Ben Lamort's book on objectives and key results, definitely source of how you think, how you structure, how you do things. That's a great one. But also as you're thinking through specific use cases, what are the challenges, how you cascade, how you deal with the large number of key results as kind of you go your recycling of OKRs throughout a large organization. The name is Felipe Castro, and he has a blog which covers any specific kind of edge case or a challenge or question that might come up. He also has a white paper or kind of free book in PDF format that also he makes available through his website, and a newsletter about it. Yeah, here is the book. So that's probably the second source to make your presentation very practical.
Thank you, Mariya. Very helpful.
All right,
You're
I
very
have
welcome.
the scores whenever you're ready.
Okay, who are the winners, Piyush?
Okay, so let me share. Am I able to share or no? Yeah. Okay.
If you're a presenter.
Oh, do you, so Jay, are you able to give me the share?
Yeah, I'm
right?
doing it.
Mariya, like while
And
Piyush is
now co-host.
trying to share.
Co-host, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
So do you see my screen?
Wow, that's
Yes.
a lot of calculations here.
Yeah, so this is what I did. I took a snapshot of the participants, gave them numbers, and then otherwise, like, it would have been very difficult to manage. But I hope I have been able to get everyone correct because it was happening so quick. So I think the winner is Sham. He gets the highest, 2200, and Prasad comes the next second, and we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 third prizes. So we have 3, 4, 3, 3 third level.
So
Awesome.
we each get a room in a house in Malibu for one night.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Eliza also got the 4th prize. So Eliza is also there.
Awesome. So I think we got 7 winners. So again, please expect a file with OKR cards and with the rules for OKR mini game that I hope you and your organizations will enjoy.
Yeah. All right. So I think this is great. It was fun. So did you take a screenshot of this, Mariya?
I will have to collaborate
Okay.
with
All
you,
right.
Jay, and with you, Piyush, on how to
All right.
find
That's
the
fine.
email
Yeah.
addresses and share it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just all the winners, send me your email address, and then we'll connect to you, and then you get to get a room in the Malibu house.
And then we'll all meet there. So are there any kind of, before we conclude, any questions, experiences, anything else anyone wanted to share and didn't have a chance yet?
Mariya, I had a question. Shyam here. I think you stressed upon a point like if OKRs are done correct, it will be fun. So my question here is, I think if we are doing it wrong, are there any early indicators we can look for it? Okay, oh, this is happening, so this might be wrong, something like that. Any thought process or suggestions for us?
Yeah, so my former manager called it OKR bad smells. So there are a few of those that kind of would immediately show that it may not be like exactly the way you want to inspire people. So first one is top down. Okay, so when someone tells people like that's what your key result should be, or writes it for them, sends it to them and say, do you have any feedback? I created those key results. Like, is there anything there? You know, even though it's presented as if there is flexibility there, those OKRs should be created by people who actually work on implementing them. So kind of any top-down, any assignment type of activities are definitely bad smells. The other one is grading. If anyone is grading my OKRs or my team's OKRs other than actually people who own them, that's the second one. And that's actually happens a lot with performance reviews. It doesn't mean as a team we're self-grading our OKRs, we're challenging each other, especially if we haven't done pre-grading. So that's definitely something we can discuss and review, but kind of not outside of the entity that is working on those, that created those for themselves. The third one is when kind of type of what I spoke about the company that kind of wanted to become the #1 educational institution. So that's where those objectives are not realistic. You know, that's definitely not a good sign. And the last one is when they're not transparent. It doesn't mean like in organizations, there could be some that may not be exposed to the whole organization. There is a new product being built. It's there is an NDA, there is a group of people who are exposed to it. So definitely they do not need to be exposed to the whole organization, but if there is no transparency at organizational level on what those are and how we're doing on the ongoing basis, that just means we're wasting a lot of time. So I would say those are like the primary 5 bad smells.
Thanks, Mariya.
Thank you, Sham. Great question.
Any other questions? So thank you very much, Mariya. That was so much fun and exciting. I actually learned stuff, and it was a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for hosting me, and thank you all of you who joined. It has been amazing sharing it with you, and I am impressed. That's my best group I ever played Jeopardy with in terms of your dedication, answers, and engagement. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So just in summary, so now we'll go into the last few minutes before 8, and we'll end probably early if depends on who has any questions. So now we open up, we call it Ask an Agile Coach. So you can ask all of us any question you want about the Agile universe and space and our experience, and we'll attempt to respond. I do want to say that all the stuff we talk about, OKRs and all this great information we learned today is very important as we move into a product organization and do lean portfolio management, because OKRs is a very important construct to use in those strategic financial decisions that a company has to make, right? So this is a very, very important aspect of that I think is relevant. So now let's open it up to any Ask an Agile Coach question. So anyone has any questions with anybody? Just any questions about Agile and the universe? This is the time to ask.
I think folks are giving thank you notes to Mariya.
I think everyone is like, their brain is full of wealth and knowledge and emotional exuberance. They cannot think of anything else to ask.
Actually, I do have something.
Uh-oh.
So you mentioned Agile, then you had mentioned something about lean portfolio management. I guess, what is the difference between lean portfolio management and traditional portfolio management?
Oh, that's a good question. What do you mean traditional? I mean like the program project management, the PMI?
Yeah. Yeah. How would the OKR be part of a lean process? I guess maybe what's the definition of a lean portfolio management process?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there in a lot of different areas and groups that I could point you to, but basically the difference is that it's iterative, and we're trying to figure out what we can know in certain horizons. It's like 3 different horizons we look at. So when we create strategic decisions coming into the company, we try to use techniques like design thinking, service design, working with the customers to determine what the customer wants and what the demand is. We bring that in to this lean portfolio management structure. And then we determine how we, weight those options. So we got $10 million. We got a year to spend $10 million. Well, how should we spend that $10 million, right? What's going to give us the value that we expect from the market, from the customers, from the revenue projections, from the ARG, the way we look at customer acquisition and retainment and so forth. So we kind of have a process that we figured out over the years, and it's like everything, we're evolving and learning. And so this is the difference, is that it's open and we only look at short to medium horizons versus, a year, 2 year, horizon. And then we inspect and adapt it as we go. And we try to weight these things. So what I'm finding out in many companies and organizations, they're moving away from KPIs to OKRs to evaluate and determine what to invest in, right? And they do cost of delay and other, other mechanisms to do that. But it is a strategic, investment decision. So that's what lean portfolio management is about. The difference in the old way we used to do it was we try to look at, a year or 2 year or something like that. And we're finding out, the best we could do is quarter by quarter. We can have like a year kind of, product, a map and a product plan. But at the end of the day, we have to figure out what can we do in these short iterations and releases to meet our goals. So that's what I'm seeing. I would like anyone else to share what they're seeing.
I think, Jay, you really put the exact right perspective to lean portfolio. And I think the other aspect in my experience has been is that the traditional portfolio management and the lean portfolio, I think the focus is more on helping to identify the minimum viable products and to be able to continuously inspect and adapt based on how, based on all what you said, how that can be applied to the MVP and see whether we want to pivot or persevere. So those capabilities are built into the organization as a culture. So you move away from lagging indicators to move towards identifying what is it that you would like to see, and what would be your innovation indicators, or what you call as the leading indicators in your journey, and how they are impacting your non-functional requirements, because that also impacts the outcome. So I think all this put together, and then the budget may be fixed, but then you are experimenting and spending the money. So that way you're not spending the money right upfront as the allocation on a project, but you are working on an outcome-based way of doing the things, and you are able to continuously say every quarter or every month, depending on how soon or what is the cadence in which the organization wants to operate. I think that's basically what I see is how the lean portfolio, and I think the focus also looks at the investment horizon. So how are you managing the investment horizons in terms of what is emerging? So you're able to establish those into this whole process of minimum viable product, and helping the organizations to look at different parts, and also ensuring that there is a very light weight governance process in place. So it's more helping the team to become self-organized and decentralized than being a centralized way of working. So those are the aspects that is built into the lean portfolio management way of doing things. This is my experience.
Yeah, if I may add my 2 cents there. Thanks for the question. I actually have been thinking about this as well. Personally, I haven't really implemented lean portfolio management, even though we are trying certain aspects of it and trying to incorporate certain aspects of it from a portfolio management. A couple of things I would say is, one, lean portfolio management is focused on value stream versus products or specific deliverables or objectives. That's one thing in terms of the difference. And the second thing is how you adapt the investments on a regular basis, and how do you make sure that you refine the investments so that you get the maximum value at a regular cadence. So lean portfolio management would help the organization drive that change much faster and much smoother. As Piyush said, it's much more empowered at a team level rather than at a top-down you got to do, multiple levels of portfolio strategy and investment decisions, and it goes down step by step. So these are like two things that I would say are like the major difference. How you look at investments in terms of the boxes. And the second thing is how quickly you refine those investments or change the investments are the big differences.
And I would add to that I haven't mentioned, but I'll throw a monkey wrench into this, and that is product discovery. So Google and other companies are very good about experimentation. So how do you know what to invest in stuff? And sometimes there's a lot of unknowns. So you have to use things like design thinking and service design and so forth to go out there and work with your customers in the market and do market fit to determine, what should we invest in? And sometimes you got to do prototypes, you got to do ethnography studies and so forth to get the information that you need to pull into the lean portfolio management. This is data. This is real information that you can use to help make those decisions. So what does the customer really want, right? So when they created the iPhone, there was no market or customer for the iPhone, but they thought, well, we think a lot of customers would want this. We'd make $1 billion off of this, right? They didn't know. It's an experiment, right? But gladly it paid off, right? So it's the same thing with any company and everything. So that is the other aspect of this. So you have lean portfolio management and you have product discovery, and they work, and that whole probing and experimenting kind of works together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, three very good angles. And
So
definitely-
Travis, from Kanban.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm curious. So Travis, as like Kanban guru, from like lean Kanban perspective, is there a lean Kanban portfolio management that kind of you are working on?
Yeah, well, it's not a I wouldn't call it a lean portfolio management. It's more of an agile influence right now, like just trying to be more agile using OKRs, and the accounting system at Magic Leap, as we know, is probably not one of the best in the industry. Wouldn't consider it lean, but would consider it definitely agile. So we're trying to make a move in that direction with a focus on lean, but trying to figure out how to align that at all the different levels, right? Because you have the practices, and then you have the principles, and then you have the initiatives and the OKRs. But then how does that align with the finances and the budgets to become more agile, I guess, as well.
And what some companies are doing now is they're aligning OKRs. They're replacing the KPIs with OKRs at the epic level and the theme level. Okay, so when they look at their investment strategy, they're using OKRs to determine their investment strategy. Then if you follow Agile or SAFe or anything else, when you get to the epics and so forth, they're aligning those and then they're taking those measurements from the key results, right? To determine, did we make it? And a lot of times you don't know until you release it into production, and then you get the customer's response. Well, did we make our key result or not? What do we have to change if we didn't, right? So I don't know, Mariya, are you kind of seeing that?
I do seeing that a lot. And I have to be honest, I just built, like for those of you who are using Jira, there is portfolio plugin. So I just built the whole portfolio view of OKRs. And it does mean there is always like cascading parent-child view, but it's always possible to build a meaningful view of how all the work that we're doing day to day contributes to our progress against our OKRs. So that's very insightful, Jay, and it's kind of very, very timely for me personally.
And it's hard. It's very hard. And there's a lot of challenges in the way. This is like cultural and organizational change, right? For many companies. So it's very difficult for them to do what they used to been doing for 50, 60, 70, 100 years, and now flip to this new way, because this requires organizational change, right? And it's difficult. And a lot of companies now are taking this on and doing it. Why? Because they're looking at the companies that are very successful, and they're asking them how. And Google and all the rest of them, Apple, they let you know. They'll tell you up to a point what they're doing, and they're going, oh, cool. Maybe we need to emulate that, because apparently whatever they're doing is working. So that's what I'm seeing right now. A lot of companies here and across the world in the United States are jumping onto the bandwagon to say, how can we be as successful as those companies? Any other questions? Cool.
This has been great conversation, Jay. I think nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to end it at 7:51 or so. And I want to, again, thank Mariya. She's fantastic. Thank you. Let's give her a clap.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. One question, final question for me, Jay. Do you want to talk about the next ones? Because I looked at the upcoming meetings that your meetup is hosting, and they're amazing. So I was thinking others may benefit as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Mariya. So yeah, so we have a couple more really cool stuff. So not
Thursday night.
Thursday.
Thursday night we have M. Campbell Pretty and Adrian. What's Adrian's last name? Adrian Wilson. Who are partners in Australia, and I heard them speak last summer in Seattle, and it was the most inspiring talk I've heard on teamwork. Teamwork taken to the tribal level, and so. M. Campbell Pretty has written a book called Tribal Unity, which I highly recommend. It's one of my top 4 books from last year, with Accelerate and a couple of other books. M. Campbell Pretty and Adrian did the most inspiring talk I've heard since I heard Rich Sheridan talk about mental innovations a couple of years ago. Really highly inspirational. Thursday night.
Yeah, so join us.
And coming up after that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go. Yeah, you go.
Okay. Well, what is next?
I get M because I met her yesterday.
What is next? The big room planning. Right.
Is it? Yeah. So there are 2 coming up in July, and one of them is PI planning, big room planning.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one on this one, right? That's what excited me so much on team topology.
Oh yes. Yes. Yes, we'll have Manuel. Manuel will talk about that and the topology and the teams and so forth. That's very cool. I like some of his ideas and concepts and practical ways of doing that. That'll be exciting as well. Manuel is a very good speaker.
A very interesting book that any of us who are designing organizations should have on our shelf.
Right,
and read.
Yeah, and we have more coming up. We're lining them up. So please, everyone, stick with us, stay with the community. If you have any ideas or any suggestions or anyone that you would like to present and talk to the community, send us a note. Send me a note and other leaders, and we'll see what we can do. So again. Thank you, everyone.
I hope all the future ones are as good as tonight's.
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.